Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around, we are on Womprat Gulch for a bit of Vampire Count against Dark Elf action. This was actually the second game I got in against a viewer, against Ronan, and I thought this was another fun one. And Vampire Counts versus Dark Elves always can be a bit of a rough one, but I've been trying a bunch of builds with Vampire Counts and kind of bouncing around, and I wanted to try something. I actually saw this used by another player against me, Graveguard build. So basically just spam Graveguard with great weapons, and I've seen it used to some effect. I haven't necessarily seen it used to great effect, but I have seen that they can trade rather well with, for example, Blackguard. Surprisingly well against Harganeth Executioners if they're given the proper buffs and proper support. And so I really wanted to give them a shot and see if I can make them work against Dark Elves. So going against Ronan here, as you can see, I did bring Manfred. I don't know what to say. It's a bit of a mixed bag as far as spells go. I brought Spirit Leech, I brought Fate of Buna, I brought Soul Blight, Invocation of Nehek, Raised Dead, as well as Van Hel's Dance Macabre. We also do have Master of the Black Arts, as well as the Sword of Unholy Power. Our front line here of Blackguard, or of Graveguard, is going to, give us some decent AP core. They are backed by the Sternsmen for that staying power, as well as 2 Skeleton Spears just to give us a little extra width. On either flank, we have Direwolves as well as Blood Knights, a cool combo that I think works rather well against most Dark Elf troops. Though one of their annoying shutdowns is the Raven Heralds, and my opponent actually did bring these, so interesting pick. I was kind of hoping that the Spirit Leech on Manfred would beat them off, so we'll see how the Spirit Leech does against them. They're definitely a very annoying unit in this matchup if you don't bring any flyers, and we'll definitely see how they do. For the rest of my opponent's build, choice of Marathi on foot, actually, so not going too fancy, but she does have some crazy debuffs, and this is actually very frustrating to fight against with Vampire Counts because your baseline stats are very, very bad. So Marathi makes those bad stats even worse. There's also Soul Blight. This is why I normally bring a Mortis Ascension, actually, for this sort of situation. But regardless, definitely very good combination. I think Marathi's great in this matchup. Wand of Kraydon for that bombardment, Soul Stealer, Power of Darkness, as well as Soul Blight. So some good selection of spells, good selection of abilities, definitely not to be messed with. Alongside her, we do have a Canine Assassin, an interesting choice. He does have the Web of Shadows, Assassin's Trophy, which is of course great for debuffing and sniping Lords of Heroes, and then Dark Venom to boost his melee attack, or melee damage, which you don't see all that often, but the Canine Assassin is surprisingly decent in close quarters. It's just something I don't see people usually try to do with him. They usually try to chip away with the crossbows, so we'll definitely see how he does. For the front line, my opponent did bring a bunch of Dread Spears, as well as the Helabroni, who are of course the Regiment of Renown, with poison and ludicrous melee stats. They actually have charge defense against all. They've got charge defense. Pretty cool. Behind that, double Blackguard of Nagron, very potent unit in this matchup because they've got immunity psychology as well as some pretty monstrous melee stats and good AP and all that sort of stuff. And then the Blades of the Blood Queen, who can just murder undead troops for days if they're not hit by some sort of debuff, rear charging from cavalry or something along those lines. On the flanks, double Dark Riders with dark Shards, and then in the back we do have the Slaanesh Harvesters, who are a pretty powerful unit as well, but they're bound Word of Pain as well as bound Soul Stealer. So we'll definitely see how things break down. You can see I'm immediately pushing forward. My opponent here pushing forward with the Raven Heralds, looking to get some meaty shots on the Blood Knights, which of course is going to be a very valuable unit for me. And if these guys can get all their ammo off on a single unit of Blood Knights, that could definitely be pretty brutal. And you can see we're immediately hitting them with a Spirit Leech, trying to get rid of them. But really not doing that much. We're not even able to, you can see these guys, although they do take about 700 HP damage here. Maybe even more, maybe even 800. They've only lost one model, which is rather unfortunate. I can basically guarantee that one model has a lot less than 800 HP, but it looks like the damage on Spirit Leech actually gets distributed between them each bit of damage goes onto a different model, or each tick of damage goes onto a different model. So if you don't get luck out essentially and get 2 hits on the same model, you're not able to snipe the unit. Now, what I perhaps should have done here with the Blood Knights is run away, or maybe even try to box them in or blob them in with my infantry, try to get a little bit of dilution on these troops. But I don't, and so you can see the Blood Knights are going to start taking a lot of hurt. They've already lost about 1500 HP, and they're losing more by the second. In the meantime, I'm stuck waiting on my cooldowns. So we're going to push in here with our infantry, trying to engage on this defensive box from the Dark Elves. Another Spirit Leech going down on the Raven Heralds. We are able to actually chip away another 2 models there fairly quickly, and actually hitting another 3. We'll actually see how many we managed to take off in just 2 cats of Spirit Leech. And it looks like we've gotten 4 off, which unfortunately just isn't good enough. You really need to be getting more. Unfortunately, at this point, I was definitely regretting not bringing some bats, but oh well, what can you do? Hindsight's 2020. Over here, the Slunish's Harvesters are going to dive into our puppies, so we're going to pull away with our Direwolves and go in for a meaty charge with Manfred as well as the Blood Knights. The Blood Knights, although down to 38 models and a lot less HP, are still going to be an absolutely brutal monster in this sort of engagement, and they're just going to be able to pound these Slunish's Harvesters face in no matter what they do. And you can see we're going to hit these guys in the Invocation of the Neck, trying to keep them alive, while the Direwolves and the Dire Pack are going to swing around and try to get after these archers and these mounted troops. So Dark Riders running for dear life. Meantime, the Blood Knights are going to be able to sort of escape past these Blackguard and start looking for some openings. Unfortunately, a few here getting snared on the Blackguard, but we're going to sort of force them in and go for a rear charge on these Dreadspears, who are essentially the weak link in this line. And we are going to be able to sort of buckle them. You can see here on the front line, although Morathi is definitely being pretty potent and definitely making life miserable, for sure, these Hellbroni are kind of going down, and the Sturdsmen are holding their own. And the Blaze of the Blood Queen, although they're doing rather well, if we can deal with everything else here, if we can deal with these Blackguard, if we can slaughter these spears on the flanks, we should then be able to collapse and deal with these remaining troops in the center. Unfortunately, though, a Web of Shadows, lovely usage of it here, going down on my Blood Knights, and we can actually watch just how much damage it does. You can see how many ticks of damage it's getting. These guys losing basically a model on every tick of damage, so some brutal stuff. Great usage of the spell there, and honestly something I didn't even notice in game, but a pretty cool usage of that ability, and definitely doing a lot of damage to my poor Blood Knights. In the meantime, these Blood Knights over here are just getting massacred by the Raven Heralds. So, moral of the story, I did hit them with another Spirit Leech, only took another 3 models off. So, moral of the story, kids, if you're going in against Dark Elves, always make sure to bring some bats. Even if you're not going air heavy, bring some bats, deal with those dumb Raven Heralds, because they are going to make life miserable, as you can see they're doing here. And a great play here, definitely good job showing out my Blood Knights. In the meantime, the Blood Knight's definitely starting to struggle a bit. We are going to pull Manfred, and we're trying to surround the candidate assassin. He doesn't have the best melee defense, so we're going to try to surround him with Graveguard, start beating the snot out of him. Of course, he's not the tankiest of fellows either. Manfred over here diving in. He's got Invocation of the Heck going. Master Blackguard's doing quite a bit of damage in close quarters. Unfortunately, being hit by Assassin's Trophy and, getting beaten down pretty badly. But we're definitely doing some damage here. The Blades of the Blood Queen suddenly taking quite a pounding with that rear charge. If we can drop their leadership enough, they'll lose Frenzy as well, which would be huge. The Dire Pack and the Direwolves, catching those Dark Riders, chasing them off the field, gonna put us in a much better position. Once again, if I had some bats here, that would have been huge, because these guys who have been just wailing on my Blood Knights would not be that much of a nuisance, but, what can you do? Power of Darkness goes on these Dying Spears. Once again, good usage, just making sure that I don't get too much, that I'm basically, even after beating this unit, he still gets some value out of him. He's able to use them for a battery pack. Manfred, unfortunately, getting beaten down pretty badly by Morathi. Of course, Morathi does have AP. She's got anti-large. These Blades of the Blood Queen, though, getting pincered, starting to get destroyed. And in fact, if we take an overarching look, we can see that the balance of power is pretty darn even. Now, certainly my Blood Knights here getting slaughtered in the pits. These guys down to 9 models, and basically at both at their healing cap. But the Raven Heralds are out of ammo. We still have the Dire Pack. We still do have our Direwolves somewhere as well, I think. Yeah, there they are. So things, all in all, not actually looking that bad for the Vampire counts. We still have a very healthy unit of Graveguard Grave Weapons over there. A second unit of Graveguard Grave Weapons that's basically at full HP. But here is where I make a huge misplay. A bit of not paying attention, a bit of looking elsewhere, and suddenly Manfred is very, very darn low, and he's just getting destroyed. Now, this is going to cost me the game here. Spoiler alert for the next 30 seconds. You can see I'm trying desperately to sneak Manfred out of this fight. He's not able to cast Invocation in the Heck because he's crumbling, and suddenly we are completely screwed. I do get hit by a Soul Blight. You can see the morale just tanking for our troops, with Morathi's debuffs in my face now, and of course no way to buff my troops with Manfred. Suddenly things just shift completely. You can see the balance of power just tanks on the loss of Manfred. And honestly, these Graveguard are just not going to be able to do the job at this point. And so, good game. That is essentially going to be it. For these last few seconds were basically me just being sad and watching my army crumble to nothing. So, great game to my opponent here. Great game to Ronan. As far as the build goes, I'm not sold on it. Personally, I wanted to give it a shot. I think it can work against certain Dark Elf builds. But against kiting builds, and Dark Elves can obviously go with even more annoying kite builds than this one. This isn't the worst of it by far. This was a pretty balanced and well-rounded composition, in my opinion. Very well done. But I don't think it would be very good against those. I think what you're better off with is going with more. Definitely bring more skirmish units. 28 models taken off Blood Knights is absolutely brutal, and a lot of HP damage. So definitely really well done there, and just some huge value out of those Raven Heralds. They easily paid for themselves. One of those rare situations where they do. Bring some bats. I think that, honestly, you're better off doing Mortis Engine plus bats. Screw going for elite infantry. You can whittle them down, just burn them over time. And yeah, I think that's just the way to go as vampire counts. because quite frankly, the Graveguard of the Ravens, while decent, are definitely very reliant on Lord staying alive. And honestly, you don't with this sort of comp, you don't really get the counters you need to air spam, or to, not even air spam, just air units in general. So I think that's just a bit of a disadvantage. But it was a very fun comp to try. Very well played to my opponent. You can see both his Blackguard just doing monsters with the 3 elite infantry and just doing monsters work. But I really do think that a huge MVP here from the Raven Heralds, and just shutting down the Blood Knights, who I was really relying on to carry a lot of weight. Otherwise, I don't really have much critique. I thought it was a pretty good comp, to be quite honest. One thing I could be seeing to be perhaps a little bit more of an issue is if your opponent goes for a bit more of a perhaps mobile vampire count comp. If your opponent goes with a few more mobile units, you could perhaps struggle a little bit because you only do have 2 Blackguard, and everything else here is rather susceptible to, say, getting cycle charged. If there was an extra unit of Blood Knights in there and some bats to shut down your air, this could go a little worse. But otherwise, I honestly don't think it's bad, and definitely very well played. Hope to see you again on the ladder. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you found it entertaining, and if you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below to keep up with additional content. As usual, I do appreciate you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.